2023 was a total disaster for Clark Lea and his third Vanderbilt team. After the September 2nd win over Alabama State, the Commodores did not win another game. You saw signs probably in that early game against Hawaii that it's probably going to be a long year. And the worst part is that Lee is a defensive guy, and the Vanderbilt defense in 2023, once again, was not a good unit. The Commodores were 126 in scoring D and 128th in total defense, and 8 foes scored at least 35 points against Vanderbilt. To be fair to Clark Lea, this is as tough as a job as it has ever been, but there is no denying that 2024 is a big year for Lee at his alma mater. Another disastrous season like 2023 could make the administration should maybe start to ponder what direction they go with Vanderbilt football. But I'm here to ask the question, what is success for Vanderbilt in 2024? I know this is probably one of the hardest ones to do. I mean, Vanderbilt has the over-under set at 2.5. Vegas is the over-under set for Vanderbilt's win total at 2.5 right now. So do they get over that? We'll look at the schedule here. You know how I do this segment. We'll give a black and white record prediction, but we'll dive in immediately into two things. If I was a Vanderbilt fan, minus the win-loss total, I would like to see. And that, first of all, in offense, it needs to start at the run game. It needs to be improved. Vanderbilt's run game in 2023 was second to last in the SEC with 1,144 total yards. They averaged 95, I think roughly 0.3 yards per game on the ground and 3.3 yards per carry. Cedric Alexander is back in 2024 after leading the Commodores in rushing and will lead what will most likely be a committee approach, or kind of a by-committee approach, I would say here. But A.J. Newberry, another returnee who should see his role increase. Chase Gillespie is another guy who could also get some more work in. But one thing to keep in mind here, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, when it comes to Vanderbilt's running game in 24, is that new OC from New Mexico State, Tim Beck, the offense, the quarterback is going to be utilized a bunch in the run game. Diego Pavia, y'all remember him, had a phenomenal game against Auburn last year. Had a massive game. Pavia had him and Tim Beck's offense. Auburn couldn't stop him. I mean, Auburn's offense, Ron Robertson could not stop them. He is at Vanderbilt now. And also Nate Johnson, backup quarterback for Utah, who started against Florida last year. I mean, if you want to be honest, Pavia and Johnson are both 2-0 against SEC teams. Pavia against Auburn, Johnson in that first start against Florida and Salt Lake City last year when Cam Rising was out. And Johnson's biggest strength is his legs. So I suspect the run game will be a little improved. They have some depth on the offensive line, a lot of versatility, a lot of guys that can play on the inside and outside. So I think that run game is going to improve, if not by scheme alone, when you factor in the quarterback run game. On the defensive side of the ball, some things you'd like to see improve. The secondary has to get better. There's some returning talent in the secondary, but that may not be the best thing for Vanderbilt after the Commodores finished 126 against the pass last season. Don't be surprised if some newcomers do most of the heavy lifting here, as there's only one foundational piece, and that's a linebacker transitioning back at safety in C.J. Taylor, who has made 55 tackles, 77.5 tackles for a loss, and he had a pair of interceptions in 23. Marlon Jones, an Eastern Washington transfers, had some FCS success, was there for the spring and impressed at one corner, and he should be joined by the returning Martell Height, who got work as a freshman last year. Micah Bell, a Notre Dame transfer, Marcus Davis from Southern Illinois, and Colby Taylor from Wyoming, along with Tyson Russell, will all be kind of in that fight for that rotation. Davis played a lot in his 3 seasons and could be heavily involved. Joining Taylor at safety will be signee Dante Wright, who takes over after the post-spring departure of DeRicky Wright. But remember, DeRicky Wright kind of had that thing where he came back to the program. So Carter, Vandy's top signee in the 2024 cycle and 4-star prospect, he should be getting a big look there in the secondary as well. So while there's a bit of a little bit like baptism by fire maybe for Carter there, you have to throw him out there because the talent ceiling is through the roof there. So he could also have some star quality. Then you have Marlon Sewell and Jalen Gilbert who add depth. And if the potential is met, this group could go from a liability to a strength from a Vanderbilt standpoint overall. Just an overall standpoint there from the secondary. If we're wanting to get into the black and white schedule standpoint here, of course we'll do that. Let me pull it up on the screen here. Vanderbilt opens up with Virginia Tech Alcorn State, go at Georgia State. They'll play at Turner Field there. And then from a non-conference standpoint, their other game is against Ball State and the Cardinals there. So, yeah, I mean, Virginia Tech at home, First Bank State, I think it's going to be a loss. They should get Alcorn State. I'm not sold they beat Georgia State, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to probably give them the win there against Georgia State. So you're 2-1 after 3 at Missouri. I don't think they get. Bye week, Alabama, I don't think they get. At Kentucky, I don't think they get. Ball State, smart that up as a win. At Texas at home, probably not. At Auburn, no. South Carolina, no. Maybe. I mean, South Carolina at home is probably the game conference-wise they could get. If you were to circle one, out of all the games, out of the 8 conference games, I would say that is the game they probably Vanderbilt could get. The home game against South Carolina, I don't think they will. I'm just saying that's the one most likely. Bye week at LSU, no. And then finishing the season hosting Tennessee. I don't. Best case for Vanderbilt, 4-8. Worst case, 2-10. Probably maybe just Alcorn State and Ball State would be your win. Because, again, I'm not automatically giving Georgia State the automatic win yet. Del McGee, Murray Georgia's running backs coach, coming over from that standpoint. So I'm not overly I'm not overly for sure that's a loss for Georgia State and a win for Vanderbilt, vice versa on that standpoint. So I think realistically, Vanderbilt a 3-win team. I would go just over that half-win mark for Vanderbilt there. If for Vegas, like I mentioned, Vegas has it set up at 2.5 right now. I would go just over that win total at 3. That's how I would look at it. If I'm just being honest here, I mean, like I said, most likely conference win, South Carolina at home. After that, I mean, look, maybe at Kentucky or at Auburn, maybe. But, I mean, I think both of those are major stretches here. I mean, it's not an easy conference slate. I mean, none of them are easy for Vanderbilt because they go into every matchup not having the best roster. And, again, it's a very tough job for Clark Lea right now. Where does he go? I mean, he made both coordinator changes. He demoted both of them. He took over the defense himself, so he's essentially saying, like, hey, if we're going down with the ship, it's going to be under my terms. So I can respect that as a head coach. I can respect that. But it's a difficult schedule when you have Vanderbilt's roster, and you only see 3 wins there. So I really don't blame Vegas for having the over-under set at that 2.5 win total. I think it's about right. And I was a guy last year. It was shouting from the rooftop. I thought it was a blood bank guarantee Vanderbilt would get over the 3.5 win total that Vegas set going into 2023. I thought they'd get 4 wins. I thought they would. But then you watch that Hawaii game, that week 0, for some whatever you want to call it, week 1 for some. And you just kind of like, man. And then they struggled against Alabama State. I think it was Alabama State or Alabama A&M the next week. You're like, woo! I don't know if they're going to get UNLV and Wake Forest. And they didn't. And then you didn't see them getting a conference game. And I don't see them getting a conference game this year, guys. I really don't. I hate being that guy. But I think realistically here, if we're talking about what would be a successful season for Vanderbilt in 2024, again, I'm on here. I've stated I can't call anything a success when it's a losing record or 500. It isn't in me. Some would say, but for Vanderbilt, a realistic successful season, I think it'd be 4-8, and you got to improve in the run game, which I think you will with the scheme with both quarterbacks, Diego Pavia and Nate Johnson. I think you're going to improve with both of them. And the secondary can only improve. You can't keep being bombs over Baghdad, explosive plays over the top all the time. Because I think the defensive line, depth-wise, and the linebacker unit's going to be good. Again, the roster across the board, it's improved. It's tough to keep that developmental talent at Vanderbilt now. It just is what it is. So I think the improved run game, the improved secondary play, you win 3 non-conference games. You can afford to lose that Virginia Tech game open the year, and you get a conference win. You beat Alcorn State, you beat Ball State, and you beat Georgia State, and you get a conference and SEC win. 4-8. Hate to call that a success, but if you improve in those other 2 categories, I think for Vanderbilt, that would be a successful 2020-24 campaign, even going into Clark Lea's 4th year. But again, I appreciate you joining us for what would be a successful season segment for Vanderbilt heading into 2024. Again, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. All things SEC, 24/7, 365. SEC Media Days in Dallas are on their way. We got College World Series content coming at you. We'll have Chris Phillips there live in Omaha at Ameritrade Park. So TD Ameritrade part, so that'll be a fun event. Obviously, everybody's going to be locked in for that. But again, don't forget, like, subscribe, stay with us again. I'm your host, Dave Shumate, longtime personnel guy in the college football world and especially in the SEC, coming at you, bringing you SEC content all the time. Have a fantastic day.